Hello and welcome to our Institute of Early Years Education Careers Collection. This is part 4 in our journey, applying for a job, and we're looking at how to find a way into a career in early years. So whether you're just leaving school now and thinking about a career from the start, or you're looking to change your pathway later on, we're here to kind of give you a little bit of guidance about the different aspects and questions you might have. So, as I said, this is part 4 in our ongoing series, supporting you for looking into a career, a move into a career in early years. And in our previous episodes, we've discussed a lot about how you might go into looking for a new position, the kind of things you might be looking for in a new role, asking questions such as, what will it involve? Where should I look? And finding ways to figure out if the job is right for you. So in this episode, we'll be looking a little bit more into the practicalities of the process, such as how to use a job description, putting your CV together, and top tips for these initial stages. And don't worry, we'll be breaking this information down into much smaller stages. Our next episode will focus entirely on that interview process itself, so we don't need to be thinking about that today. So, you found a vacancy you've liked, and in the circumstances they seem to suit your lifestyle, you might be looking to apply for the role. It's an exciting prospect putting together that application, but it can be really daunting too, particularly if you are in a circumstance where you kind of need to get a job soon and there are time constraints around it, or it's one of your first in that area. So an average job application takes around 30 to 60 minutes, depending on the employer. It can be that there are different aspects. You might have to do it all online. Some might just want to see your CV initially and then ask you further questions later on, and it be kind of separated into stages along the way. But an average employer spends only an initial 8 seconds looking at your CV before deciding whether they want to pursue you or not. So it's really important that you make that strong impression straight away and in your initial application. So we'll be taking some time to think about your initial applications today. And there are many different aspects of a job application, but we'll be focusing particularly on 2 of the most common formats that are used for recruitment, your CV and your cover letter. It might be known as a job application or a summary. These are processes that are used across the country and beyond, and it's one of the reasons that we've picked to focus on this today. But it's worth bearing in mind that there are lots of different avenues that you might need to explore based on the employer that you have. So your CV, your curriculum vitae, and your cover letter are the main areas we will be exploring today. So your CV is a bit like your passport to your career because it outlines all of the experiences that you have, including where you've worked and the skills that you've obtained. This might include information about your qualifications or your work experience and the skills that you've utilised. But a CV can be written in a number of ways. Most commonly, it's the chronological CV, which is written in reverse chronological order, starting with your most recent job roles and working backwards. It highlights your experiences and the main responsibilities you've had based on the roles that you've used. But we also have the option to use a skill-based CV, and this is structured by skill instead and demonstrates each transferable skill that you've got and how you've used them in different workplaces. This is a good framework to use if you've got lots to offer, but not too many work experiences to show, or if you're looking to start out in a new career and you've not got many roles and positions that you can list that are kind of in the same area or field. As we've said before, employers will spend a lot of time recruiting people, but only a little bit of time on initially reading your CV. So it's important that you are really kind of concise with your words and make that impact for what they're looking for. Using bullet points instead of paragraphs can be a good way to do this because it keeps things succinct, but don't use too many under one heading, as this might become quite overwhelming for your reader. If you've got lots of experiences, try to tailor your chronological CV to highlight your most important roles. For example, if you've had a recent role that is much more relevant to the job, you might choose to focus on this aspect over the finer details of a job that you've had a while ago. A chronological CV can also be great to show your versatility. For example, if you've had jobs in many different fields, it's a really good way to show how your skills and your flexibility allow you to work under different fields and different responsibilities. Use bullet points under a job title to demonstrate the main responsibilities you took, rather than the really explicit details of every day's work. For example, if you had responsibilities that highlighted specific skills, or if it's really relevant to the field that you're applying to. The skills-based CV can be used to think about the most important skills that you've gained through the work and how you've displayed them. So instead of structuring this under each role in sequence, you'd use examples from across all of your work experiences to show the employer that you've not only got the skill sets, but you're able to put them into different contexts and practice. For this example, you might refer to the job description, which we'll come on to a little bit later, to think about the skills that the job is really looking for and how you can structure your CV set by those skills that they really are focusing on in their applications too. So your cover letter is a bespoke letter that showcases to the employer why you're suited to that role. Whereas your CV is your passport to you and showing all of the skills that you hold, your cover letter is a way of showing the skills that you have and how to apply them specifically to the role that you're looking to apply for. This means that often the letter has to be created with the employer in mind, which means that unlike a CV that you can use almost as a template and give out to your employers because your employment doesn't change, the cover letter will, and it needs to ensure that you suit the role and the needs for that specific position. It's really a chance to champion your skills and to give the employer a sense of who you are as a person. So some application forms invite you to submit a summary of how you meet the person's specification, which is something that you'd find in the job description. And it's very similar to a traditional cover letter. But some applications might have a word or a character limit too, so ensure that any instructions are read really carefully to ensure that you do everything that's required, but within the capacity that you have. So previously we've talked about job descriptions and how they might help you to choose a role to apply for, but that's not the end of its uses. So job descriptions will contain a series of skills that are deemed either essential to the role or desirable to have. And this is something that you can really answer in your cover letter, looking at why you're good to fit for the role, but also how you fit that person's specification that's highlighted in that job description. It's a great structure for organising your own cover letter because you're giving the employer direct examples for the skills that they're looking out for. So you can use them as subheadings and highlight the areas in which that they've specified are really important to them and to the employer that they bring onto their team, but how you also can help them to read it in a more accessible way by giving them the answers that they need. So be careful not only to list the skills, but provide examples of where you've used them. For example, instead of simply stating that you're a good communicator, tell the employer how you are a good communicator, where you've used the skills before and what effect they've had. You might have been a good communicator in your role as a bank staff member in a local nursery, communicating with the wider team of key staff to ensure consistency of care for all children during times where staff and support is needed. There you've shown exactly who you've communicated to, in what context, and what effect it's had to show that you understand the importance of the skill they're looking for. This doesn't need to be expanded on in every single skill or highlighting the skills on the person's spec as single points, but it's a good idea to cover a fair amount of the skills listed to show that you have the skills that are required for the role, but you've also inquired enough to pay attention to what they're looking for. As we said with the character limits, it can be tricky to do this, so please don't stress if you can't hit every single point, but trying to cover a good range is a really good idea for ensuring that optimal impact on your recruiter. So to wrap up today's discussion, we wanted to leave you with a few top tips to make sure that your application is the best it can be. Firstly, stay truthful and keeping everything honest. Never lie or exaggerate about your experiences. If you haven't got the experiences or skills that the job advert is looking for, the chances are that you're not the most suitable person for the role anyway. The experiences you highlight in your written application may well be asked about later on in an interview, so it's vital that you give answers that you're able to expand upon, but also remain really truthful to. As we've mentioned before, employers are busy, so make sure you are direct and concise in what you're saying to ensure that the message is clear to the reader. There will be time to expand upon these points if they were of interest to the recruiter at a later stage, examples in interviews or in further questions later on. So don't worry about having to give all of these details in the first stage. The initial application is just to give the recruiter an idea of whether you'd be a good fit and the opportunity to inquire a bit more should they want to. Do your research. It's always a good idea to research the employer and find out what they're about. For early education and care settings, this might relate to their educational ethos, such as if they follow a certain theory or a value. You might also find recent inspection reports to see what their strengths and weaknesses are, including what parents think about the setting. It's a great way to find out if the setting's right for you as well. For example, a setting's website page might highlight their routine or outdoor provision, how large the setting is, and what to expect from the wider team. It's just as valuable for you to find out if the place is right for you to work as much as they might be for you being part of their team as well. And finally, keep it consistent. There are all sorts of aspects of the recruitment process that can make it really overwhelming to contain everything you want to say, and especially if this is your first role within early years. Instead of focusing on lots of different skills, try to narrow down on some of the core values that you want to show off really well. And remember, if this role doesn't go to plan, if your initial application isn't what they're looking for, or if you feel that there's something that just doesn't fit right for you and your needs and circumstances in working life, it's always a good experience. You're always learning something new from the application process that you can take on into a role where you really do fit. And finally, if you are looking for further information in getting involved in early years, education, careers within the health and social care sector, take a look at the resources supplied by your local governments. As we know, early education and care is constantly changing, and this also involves your devolved nations as well. So rules and requirements might be slightly different depending on where you live. Scan the QR codes below to see what kind of offers are available in your area to really gain a good understanding of a career in the early education and care industry and how that might impact your working role. And don't forget, visit our website where the Institute of Early Years Education is offering a free trial and access to all sorts of different resources that you can gain really good insights into not just careers in early education and care, but also tailored advice for those practical tips we've been talking about today. And thank you. If you'd like to connect with us, please visit the links below, and we hope to see you soon. Thank you.